So question for you. Did you choose to watch this video by your own free will? Or were you predestined? You're watching Dead Dude of the Day, presented by Kingdom Lyceum. And I'm your host, Jeff Peterson. Today we're going to be talking about our main man, John Calvin. We're going to fly through the contemporary events today because there are a lot of them. The most influential event in John Calvin's life was an ongoing one that began in 1517. The Protestant Reformation began when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the church door in Wittenberg. Charles V was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 1519. From 1520 to 1566, the Ottoman Empire was at its zenith under the leadership of Suleiman the Magnificent. In 1521, Ferdinand Magellan was killed in the Philippines while leading his voyage to circumnavigate the globe. In 1532, Henry VIII breaks England free from the Roman Catholic Church because he wanted to divorce his wife. Also in 1532, Francisco Pizarro conquered the Incas. Nicholas Copernicus publishes his heliocentric theory in 1543, while in 1547, Ivan the Terrible is crowned the first Tsar of Russia. Mary Tudor, aka Bloody Mary, becomes the first Catholic Queen of England in 1553. John Calvin was born in 1509 in the French village of Noyon. Despite showing early interest in joining the clergy, Calvin was encouraged to become a lawyer by his father, so he enrolled in the University of Orleans to study law. Calvin later transferred to the University of Bourges, where he was introduced to the classical studies of humanism. This was on the rise in European universities at the time. It was here that he studied ancient languages, especially Koine Greek, and he used the New Testament as his study guide. After much personal struggle and study, Calvin came to the decision to break free from the teachings of the Roman Church in 1533. Due to the rise of conflict between Roman Catholics and Protestants that proliferated throughout Europe at the time, a Catholic nation like France was not a safe place for John Calvin. He later escaped to Switzerland to avoid the persecution that was running rampant in France. Switzerland offered relative protection from Catholic threats due to the implementation of Protestant leadership in many of the nation's cantons. These cantons were basically like states or counties. These Protestant cantons and their major cities offered a safe haven for reformers throughout the Reformation. Arriving in the city of Basel in 1532, John Calvin was quickly put to work by local authorities fulfilling different church administrative roles and clerical duties. However, it was during this time that John Calvin began to cement his legacy in history by publishing his most influential work, the Institutes of the Christian Religion. The Institutes would be an ongoing work throughout Calvin's life. The first edition that he published had 6 chapters. The final edition that he published had over 80. The entire volume covers a wide range of topics relating to Christian doctrine. In it, Calvin sums up life by saying, "The true wisdom of man consists of the knowledge of God the Creator and Redeemer." So later commentators neatly fit the teachings of Calvin's book, The Institutes, into the acronym TULIP, which covers the 5 points of Calvinist theology. Let's go and look at that acronym point by point. T stands for the total depravity of man, which means that all are sinful and can do nothing to save themselves. U stands for unconditional election, which means that God chooses to save unconditionally and not based on any human merit. The L in TULIP stands for limited atonement. This means that the sacrificial death of Christ was for the salvation of the elect. The I stands for irresistible grace, and this means that those who are chosen to be saved, or the elect, cannot reject that salvation. And then P stands for perseverance of the saints, and this means that all those who are saved will continue in the faith. So that's the basic 5 points of Calvinist theology as defined in Institutes. We'll talk more about this specific work in a little bit. After publishing the first version of Institutes, Calvin bounced around several Swiss cities for the next 5 years or so. He married Idelette de Burr, who was a widow with 2 children from her previous marriage. She and Calvin would not have any surviving children together. In 1541, Calvin was sent to Geneva to be the lead pastor of the community there. During his time in Geneva, Calvin preached over 2,500 sermons. The city of Geneva itself underwent huge reforms during the time of Calvin's influence there. So the opinion of this reform is a bit divided throughout history. Scottish reformer John Knox called Geneva the perfect little school of Christ when he was spending some time there during the Reformation. Other contemporaries and historians like Voltaire wondered whether or not Geneva was a draconian theocracy ruled by John Calvin's iron fist. Also, while in Geneva, Calvin made several enemies amongst the libertines. The libertines were Swiss Christians that doubted Calvin's doctrine and his loyalty since he was from France. However, Calvin's biggest enemy during this time, aside from heretical doctrine, was Spanish writer and scientist Michael Servetus. Servetus was anti-predestination and anti-Trinitarian, which basically made him anti-Calvin. It also didn't help that he sent Calvin a copy of Institutes of the Christian Religion with some corrections that he had made himself. Hey John, here's your book. I really enjoyed reading it. Oh, thank you. Why are you giving it back to me? Oh, I just thought you might enjoy reading some of the corrections that I made. At one point, Servetus indicated he would be visiting Geneva, to which Calvin responded to a friend that he was worried if Servetus did come to Geneva, he would not let him leave alive. Years later, while traveling to Italy, Servetus was recognized and arrested while stopping in Geneva. The city council of Geneva convicted him of heresy and had him executed by burning him at the stake. Because this is Geneva, son. Calvin's town. Throughout the rest of his ministry, Calvin more or less became the leader of the Reformed Protestants that didn't align themselves with the teachings of Martin Luther during the Protestant Reformation. Luther and Calvin, though, were respectful of each other's work as they were contemporaries during their later years in the Reformation. However, Martin Luther broke off friendly relations with John Calvin after disagreements surrounding the doctrine of the Lord's Supper. Despite this rift, Calvin did, however, remain committed to theological unity amongst reformers until his death in 1564. So, what is John Calvin's legacy? Obviously, his work laid the foundation for Calvinism. And Calvinism today in Christian circles has pretty much become synonymous with the doctrine of predestination. But it's so much more than just that. His contributions to Reformed and covenant theology have impacted many Christian denominations and churches today. And that's what makes John Calvin our dead dude of the day. Thanks for watching our video here today with Kingdom Lyceum. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our videos, ring the notification bell, and make sure that you are always learning.